Alright, what is up everybody? This is another video. With the claw raid coming up, I figured I would have a little bit of a build breakdown in details about Sonic and Vibranium gear, and to talk about the types of workarounds in which you can find, because obviously the stats are locked within the Vibranium and the Sonic gear set. But even though it does drop your stats, it could drop them immensely depending on what you're trying to do, especially if you want Valor on your first piece or Precision on your first piece, because they both roll with the might and proficiency if I'm not mistaken. There are ways to make up for it and compensate for it. After all, it is a looter shooter RPG game, and that's the purpose of loadouts. Even though we cannot use a loadout right now, we have to switch our gear manually, but hey, for right now it is what it is. So in order to compensate for it, the first thing that you're going to want is the Vibranium payload gloves. Now you can get the Vibranium gloves that has Vibranium on heavy attacks or heavy combo finishers or light combo finishers or whatnot, but no matter what you get, always get the one with the payload on it, because you saw in the video there were a lot of instances where I was using multiple attacks and the enemy had an instant amount of Vibranium filled on them no matter what type of attack I do, because it's based on your crit chance. So as long as you critically hit an enemy, this Vibranium payload could go off. If you could find one with a signature attack, as far as Black Widow is concerned anyway, if you could find one with the signature attack dealing the Vibranium damage, I would definitely go for it, because her signature attack can hit multiple enemies at once and cause a Vibranium payload to as many people as she can kick at the same time. And for your third piece, you want either this stealth boon right here, where you have the extra 15% crit chance when invisibility is active, or you can go for one like this one right here, where you get the extra 200% willpower regeneration whenever the shadow ops is active, and shadow ops is whenever your intrinsic meter is all the way full. Either one, the choice is yours. I would run this one right here because it has that 200 willpower regeneration, but I chose to run this one because it has the signature attacks on it. But depending on which one you have, you may have to change out some of your gear around it. Now the second thing that you're going to want to have in this instance is some type of damage buff in some sort of fashion. So now Sonic, but Sonic, as far as I know, do not roll with a damage buff. So if I did want to put on Sonic on this piece right here, you would have to find a damage buff within these two pieces right here, or at least you would need to find one. Now you don't necessarily have to have a damage buff, because Vibranium is kind of broken right now, and there have been a lot of people that have been reluctant to use Vibranium because it drops the stats, but it's like it does a battery effect damage, and it's a payload. It's stronger than, if you lose, let's say you lose, I don't know, let's say you lose a little bit of Valor, right? So let's say you lose 40% Valor. The payload is stronger than that 40%. So, for example, I have a little bit more trouble clearing the harm room on 170 content within 10 minutes unless I'm using this Vibranium gloves that drop my stats. So if you don't have the Vibranium gloves, I suggest that you get them with some type of payload and create some type of battery effect. You need the damage buff, but it's not necessary. It definitely helps. It will go a long way. But if you can find a damage buff somewhere within your build with the Vibranium payload gloves, even if your stats do drop a little bit, I can guarantee that the payload will make up for it. That's if your Valor drops or your heroic rating drops. Now if you're dropping on your Resolve or dropping on your Resilient, now that's a totally different story. Right, so you're going to want to have some type of damage buff if you're running Sonic. So now I'm not running the Sonic, so hopefully somebody within my group would run Sonic. But let's say I did decide to run Sonic on the pistol, I get to switch this last piece out right here and look for something with a Berserker buff. So successfully land 16 attacks in rapid succession without taking any damage to grant a damage buff. So you would definitely want that on there, or you will want a piece on the vest that has a reactive buff. So now, again, I'm not running the Sonic effect on my build for right now. until I figure out what exactly the raid will have. So I am running this piece right here that will give me a willpower burst. The powerful blitz belt has the extra 20% damage from power attacks, a 24% chance that activating a support heroic will deliver a heroic recharge burst, and landing 16 successful attacks will grant a willpower burst. This definitely helps out as far as getting your willpower back. Now if you could combine this last perk right here, the Berserker Inspiration, where you get the willpower burst, and if you could combine that with another piece of Vibranium gear like this one right here, where you get the extra 200% willpower regeneration, every time that you get this, every time that this Berserker Inspiration activates, every time you get that 16 consecutive attacks, let's say your bar, your health bar normally would fill up in 1 second. Half of the bar would fill up in 1 second. If you have this on right here, you just multiply by 200%, and it typically does about twice the amount of healing from everything that I could figure out. So if you could incorporate this aspect into your build, definitely go for it. Another thing that you will want to incorporate within your build, other than a defensive buff, and by the way, this defensive buff is OP. I might make a video on it later. It has two defensive buffs on this vest. It's insane. If you don't have something like this, you could always go for a vest that has another 200% willpower regeneration like this one right here. So now you have 400% willpower regeneration on your vest. So that could make up for the resolve that you miss if you have to have something that has lock stats like this. So even though you may have less resolve, in this case I don't, I might just run this build now that I look at it. But even though you may have less resolve, your willpower regeneration is so overpowering that it really won't matter. It really won't matter that you're missing out on that resolve. So that's another thing that you may want to incorporate within the build. And the last two things that I typically always run if I'm doing any type of harder content, let's say 170 and above, or 170 is the highest content within the game, or an OLT, is this Cosmic ISO of Affinity. So there's a 14% chance that whenever you take any type of damage, you will have a buff that will restore willpower and heroic energy. So that's a must-have for most scenarios. And you can see my stats right here, and this is with the Vibranium equipped as well. This is with the Vibranium equipped. I have a 119 crit chance, which is overkill, but I cannot find a way to minimize it as of now. And my heroic willpower recovery effectiveness is at a 138%. Now that 138% does not include this 200% if I was to run it right here. So right now I have another 200%. It's not going to show up under the willpower regeneration aspect of it. So that is one thing to keep in mind. And you can see my ultimate heroic charge rate is a 23. My assault heroic charge rate is a 22%, and the support charge rate is at a 14%. Now, I did mention earlier, I don't know exactly what they're going to be doing with the raid as far as needing the Vibranium and the Sonic. Hopefully it's something, this is what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for some type of mission where you cannot use your heroics as much. So I played this game called The Division. It's one of the best looter shooters of all time, in the same category, in the same class as this, right? So there are different types of modifiers within missions, and there are negative modifiers, and then there are positive modifiers as well. So a negative modifier would be something that is a detriment to you and your teammates. So for example, you cannot use any type of assault, support, or ultimate heroics till you get a set amount of kills. So let's say for every 10 kills, then you can use an assault heroic, right? Or for every 15 kills, then you can use your ultimate heroic. And the only way to get your ultimate heroics to recharge is by getting kills or by having some type of recharge station within your build, which is where Sonic would come in at. So that would be like an example of a negative modifier. And obviously you will get more rewards with the more negative modifiers that you have on. Now, I don't think that Crystal Dynamics is that advanced as far as creating games in order to implement something like that. So I'm not sure why we're going to need Sonic within the game, but again, if you do run a Sonic piece, a Sonic and a Vibranium piece, just make sure you have some type of damage buff on the fourth piece of gear. If you don't have a damage buff on the fourth piece of gear, try to put a reactive protection vest on. And also, these reactive protection vests are very, very good because you can get one, and I think I have one here, right here. This is perfect. So I have one right here that you could run too. And this one has a 19% chance that taking damage grants a damage buff, and you are armored whenever you are near your teammates, and you get a willpower regeneration when critically injured. So if you get that willpower regeneration when you're critically injured, and you have this extra 200% willpower regeneration on the shadow ops, even though you probably won't be in your shadow ops whenever you're critically injured, that is a lot of willpower regeneration. So you could run a reactive buff vest on it as well. But again, that's how you overcome some of the obstacles that are within the game as far as the lock stats, especially if we're going to be needing the to run the Sonic and run the Vibranium. So hopefully you took something out of this video and applied it to you and your playstyle, and have a good day.